If you think millionaires get rich by working harder, you've already lost. Because the people quietly winning aren't grinding harder than you. They're not smarter than you either. They're doing something far more uncomfortable to admit. They are outsourcing their life. Yes, including spending $20,000 on a robot that folds laundry. And before you roll your eyes, this gets worse and funnier. Imagine waking up every single day already behind. Not because you're lazy, not because you lack ambition, but because your time is already booked before your feet hit the floor. Laundry waiting, dishes stacked, floors dirty, groceries needed, errands calling your name like an unpaid bill. Your calendar does not look like opportunity. It looks like survival. Time evaporates like it has a personal grudge against you. And even productivity experts are panicking, which is rare because they're usually just confused, not scared. Here's the official story they tell you. They say spending $20,000 on a household robot is irresponsible. They call it a luxury. They say you should just do the chores yourself because hard work builds character. That's the story. But that story quietly assumes something very dangerous. It assumes your time is worthless. Because here's the part they never mention. The moment you price your time at zero, you guarantee you will never own it. Wealth is not built by effort. It is built by time ownership. Every wealthy person eventually reaches the same conclusion, whether they admit it out loud or not. If I don't control my time, I don't control my income. This didn't happen by accident. It was designed. We built an economy where high-potential people stay busy, exhausted, and distracted, so they never become dangerous. It's like watching someone juggle knives while yelling, "Trust me, I've got this," right before everything hits the floor. Everyone says hard work makes you rich. But if that were true, cleaners, nurses, warehouse workers, and single parents would all be millionaires. They're not. So something doesn't add up. Picture two people. Same intelligence, same ambition, same starting income. One spends every evening doing laundry, cleaning floors, running errands, recovering from the day. The other lets a machine handle those tasks and uses those same hours to learn a high-income skill, build a business, study markets, or create assets that don't need permission to earn. 10 years later, they don't live in the same universe. The official explanation says success comes from discipline and hustle. But hustle without leverage is just expensive exhaustion. You do not get rich doing more work. You get rich doing higher value work. And this is where the story gets uncomfortable. The real divider between the wealthy and everyone else is not intelligence. It is not luck. It is not connections. It is what you do with your non-working hours. Most people use them to recover from work. Wealthy people use them to replace work. That is not an accident. That is design. People love to laugh at the idea of a $20,000 robot, but they don't laugh at $60,000 cars. They don't laugh at $80,000 trucks. They don't laugh at $9,000 couches or $5,000 vacations that disappear in a week. Funny how luxury only becomes a moral issue when it threatens the system. Let's get one thing straight. The robot is not the investment. Time is. They'll tell you it only does basic tasks. Folding laundry, cleaning floors, carrying things from one room to another. And they're right, unless those tasks are stealing your future. Because now we're going to do math they never show you. Let's say a household robot saves you 2 hours per day. Not 10, not 5, just 2. That's 14 hours per week, roughly 700 hours per year. Now here's the question that actually matters. What is 1 hour of focused, uninterrupted, leveraged work worth? If you are learning a high-income skill, that hour compounds. If you are building a business, that hour compounds. If you are investing intentionally, that hour compounds. If you are creating content or intellectual property, that hour compounds. That hour is not worth $20. It is worth multiples. One system, one asset, one scalable idea. That is how compounding begins. This didn't happen by accident. Time poverty was engineered. Think about your day. You do not lack motivation. You lack uninterrupted time. Every system around you fragments focus. Notifications, errands, maintenance tasks, noise. Because focused people build leverage, and leverage breaks systems. They say everyone has the same 24 hours. That is technically true, but not everyone owns them. And this is where wealthy people cheat. They buy time from the future. They spend money now to create freedom later. Assistants, automation, systems, machines. The robot isn't futuristic. It is the most honest expression of wealth there is. It says, my future is worth more than my comfort today. If this idea makes you angry, it is not the robot. It is what the robot exposes. Because once you admit time has a price, you also admit you have been underpricing yourself. People respond with predictable phrases. That's lazy. That's excessive. That's unrealistic. What they are really saying is, I am not ready to think long-term. And here is the real reason people reject this idea. Most people do not want freedom. They want comfort. Freedom requires responsibility. Comfort requires permission. A robot does not save you. It exposes what you do with saved time. Millionaires do not ask, how much does this cost? They ask, what does this replace? It replaces decision fatigue. It replaces low-value labor. It replaces delayed dreams. Money that does not buy leverage is just trapped time. This is where compounding actually starts. When time compounds, income follows. Not immediately, not dramatically, quietly, then suddenly. The robot will not make you rich, but it will ask you a question most people spend their entire life avoiding. What would you do if your evenings were yours again? Most people say they would relax. That's fair, you should. But after that? Because this is the fork in the road. One path leads back to comfort. The other leads to ownership. People will laugh at the robot until they notice who stops struggling. We do not live in a money economy. We live in a time economy. Hard work sometimes pays off. Leverage pays forever. And this is the part that changes everything. The $20,000 robot is not about chores. It is a declaration. It says, my future matters more than my habits. It says, I am done trading my best hours for maintenance tasks. It says, I understand something most people never will. Time is the only asset that never renews. I'm Eli. This is Eli Invests. And if your money is not buying you time, it is not an investment. It is just a very expensive distraction.